It was a gaze she knew well, one that pierced, that measured, that judged and dismissed in less than 3 seconds. It came from a tall woman, in slender heels and carrying an Italian bag, who walked past the kiosk without even slowing her pace. Elena was used to it. She had been selling perfumes at a kiosk in Westfield Century City for 2 years, and for most people crossing that gleaming marble corridor, she was part of the decor. Invisible, disposable. At 26, Elena survived on commissions that never arrived on time. She lived in a tiny apartment in Koreatown with 2 women who also worked in retail. Her room barely fit the bed. The walls were thin. At night, she heard her neighbors' conversations, their laughter, their tears. But she didn't complain. Half of what she earned went directly to her home country, where her mother was solely caring for her younger brother, Matteo, who at 13 faced a rare illness requiring expensive and constant treatment. Elena never had luxury, never had a break, but she had something no one else in that mall possessed: absolute olfactory memory. She could identify a fragrance simply by the trail it left in the air. She recognized top notes, heart notes, base notes. She knew when a perfume was counterfeit, when it had been poorly stored, when it carried a story. It was a rare, almost artistic talent, but no one took it seriously. After all, she was just a sales associate. On that Thursday afternoon, the mall was bustling. Tourists, executives, women adorned with jewelry. Elena was arranging the bottles in the display when she felt a shift in the air. A subtle silence, firm footsteps approaching. She looked up and saw a man standing before the kiosk. Elena didn't recognize him. She didn't know she was standing before Julian Thorne, a respected magnate, a man of immense power, and a constant target of financial pressures that could reshape industries. To her, he was just another customer, a customer who seemed exhausted. "May I help you?" Elena asked, maintaining a professional tone. Julian looked at her. His dark eyes held a depth she hadn't expected. It wasn't the gaze of someone buying on impulse. It was the gaze of someone searching for something they couldn't name. "I need a fragrance," he said, his voice deep, controlled. "Of course. Something specific? For a gift? Personal use?" "Something to stop the pain." Elena blinked. The phrase came out so direct, so raw, that for a moment she didn't know how to respond. It wasn't a common request. It wasn't about wood, amber, or citrus. It was about pain. She studied his face, the fine lines around his eyes, the tension in his jaw, his slow breathing, as if holding himself together. "I understand," Elena said softly. And she did. She turned to the shelf, her fingers gliding over the bottles. She chose neither the most expensive nor the imported luxury brands. She selected a simple, discreet glass vial with a minimalist label. Amber and tonka bean, warm notes, deep, comforting. She opened the bottle and let the aroma spread between them. "This one," she said, "reminds one of where one can finally breathe." Julian closed his eyes. He inhaled slowly, and something inside him yielded. Elena watched the silent transformation on his face. His forehead's tension softened, his shoulders relaxed slightly. It was as if that scent had opened a door he had kept locked too long. "How much is it?" Julian asked, opening his eyes. $45, Elena replied. He neither haggled nor questioned, simply nodding and reaching for the bottle. Elena carefully wrapped the perfume, placed it in a small paper bag. As she handed it over, her fingers brushed his for a fraction of a second. She felt the warmth of his skin, the subtle roughness of hands burdened with responsibility. "Thank you," Julian said, and something in his voice sounded different, almost human. He turned to leave, but stopped. He looked back. "How did you know?" he asked. "Know what?" "That I needed to breathe." Elena smiled faintly, a tired, honest smile. "Because I do too." Julian gazed at her for a few more seconds. Then, without another word, he walked down the aisle. Elena watched him disappear into the crowd, discreetly escorted by men in suits she only then noticed were there. She did not imagine she would see him again. But 3 days later, he returned. This time, his steps held no urgency. Julian entered the kiosk and stopped before Elena with the same controlled demeanor, but his gaze held something different. Curiosity, perhaps even gratitude. "Did the perfume run out?" Elena asked, surprised. "No," Julian replied. "I came for another." "Another identical one?" "No, I want you to choose." Elena hesitated. This was not protocol. Wealthy clients rarely entrusted personal decisions to sales associates. But he was there, waiting, trusting. She chose something different this time. Sandalwood and vetiver, earthy, solid, like deep roots. Julian accepted without question, and he returned the following week, and the next, and the next. Julian's visits created an odd routine. He purchased not from need, but to converse, to hear Elena speak of essences, of the memories each fragrance held, of her life back home, of Matteo, of the mother she missed daily, and Elena gradually began to listen too. Julian never directly stated who he was, but she knew. From the security detail, from the glances people cast his way as he passed, from the whispered conversations that halted when he drew near. "Do you know who I am?" Julian asked one afternoon, examining a Neroli bottle. "I do," Elena replied, without pretense. "And it doesn't bother you?" "Should it?" Julian smiled. It was the first time she had seen him truly smile. Most people act differently once they find out. "I'm not most people." "I know." A comfortable silence settled between them. Elena arranged the bottles while Julian remained there, simply observing. It was strange yet not uncomfortable. It was as if in that small space, they were just two weary people finding a moment of peace. But the world outside did not permit such peace. The next day, Elena arrived at work to find Cynthia Mills, the kiosk manager, waiting with her arms crossed and a stern expression. "We need to talk," Cynthia said. Elena felt her stomach clench. "About what?" "About your interactions with certain clients." The tone was accusatory. Elena furrowed her brow. "I'm just doing my job." "Your job is to sell, Elena, not to foster intimacy with important people." "Intimacy? I sell perfume to him just like I sell to anyone else." "He's not just anyone, and people are noticing. They're talking." "This isn't good for the kiosk's image." Elena felt anger rise within her. "So you want me to be rude to a customer because he's important?" "I want you to keep your distance." "Or what? You'll fire me?" Cynthia didn't answer, but the silence was answer enough. Elena spent the rest of the day in silence, trying to process the conversation. The injustice burned. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't taking advantage. She wasn't seeking anything beyond honest work. But to the world, a humble saleswoman conversing with a magnate like Julian Forn could only mean one thing: interest. And the worst part was, she no longer knew if that was a lie. Julian had become more than just a client. He had become someone with whom she shared things she didn't share with anyone else. Someone who listened without judgment. Someone who, for the first time in years, made her feel seen. But this was dangerous. That night, Elena arrived home exhausted. The apartment was empty. Her roommates had gone out. She threw herself onto her bed and picked up her phone. There was a message from her mother. Matteo had a crisis today. We're at the hospital. He's stable now, but we need more tests. Can you send anything more this month? Elena closed her eyes and felt the tears burn. They always needed more, and she always tried to give, but it was never enough. She opened her banking app. She calculated how much she could send without going hungry. She made the transfer. She replied to her mother with a short, optimistic, untruthful message. I managed it. Don't worry. Kiss Matteo for me. Afterward, she dropped her phone and let the tears come. 2 days later, Julian returned to the kiosk. Elena tried to maintain her composure, but he immediately sensed that something was amiss. What happened? He asked, his voice soft. Nothing, Elena lied. Elena. The way he spoke her name, firm yet gentle, caused her defenses to crumble. My brother is sick. My mother needs money. I always need more money. And now my manager thinks I'm doing something wrong because you keep coming here. Julian frowned. What did she say? That I should keep my distance, that people are talking. His jaw tightened. That's ridiculous. It's the reality. Julian remained silent for a long moment. Elena could see the contained anger in his eyes, but also something more, guilt. I didn't mean to cause you trouble, he said quietly. You didn't. I'm just too invisible to deserve a normal conversation, apparently. You are not invisible. Elena laughed, without humor. Yes, I am. I always have been. The only difference is that now they're seeing me for the wrong reason. Julian took a deep breath. He knew she was right. He knew that his mere presence there put her at risk. People around him always paid prices they shouldn't. I will resolve this, he said firmly. How? I know how. But before he could do anything, her world collapsed. 3 days later, an article exploded on social media. Discreet photos of Julian at the kiosk. Sensational headlines. Tech mogul smitten with sales clerk? Forbidden romance or gold digger? Elena read the headlines on her phone during her lunch break. Her stomach churned. The comments were cruel. They called her a gold digger, an opportunist, a schemer. They said she was seducing a powerful man to change her life. When she returned to the kiosk, Cynthia Mills was waiting. You are suspended, she said without preamble. What? Until further notice. Corporate doesn't want a scandal. I didn't do anything. It doesn't matter. You're causing problems. Go home. Elena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. No work, no salary, no way to help her mother. She grabbed her bag and left without looking back. But the worst was yet to come. 2 days later, Elena was awakened by loud knocking at her door. It was 6 in the morning. She opened it, groggy, and found 2 men in suits. Elena Ramirez? Yes. We need you to come with us. There are serious accusations against you. Accusations? Of what? Theft of a rare fragrance belonging to a prominent family. Elena stood paralyzed. The words made no sense. Theft? A prominent family's fragrance? She had never touched anything beyond the kiosk's products. This is a mistake, she said, her voice trembling. We need you to come with us for clarification. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Elena was taken to an imposing government building. Cold rooms, white lighting, severe faces. They asked sharp questions, showed photos of a perfume box she had never seen, said her fingerprints were on it. I have never stolen anything in my life, Elena repeated, her voice cracking. Then how do you explain your fingerprints on the item? I don't know. Someone is framing me. But no one believed her. Hours passed. Elena was interrogated, humiliated, treated like a criminal. She thought of her mother, of Matteo, of how everything had collapsed so fast. She thought of Julian and wondered if he knew what was happening. Meanwhile, across the city, Julian was in a crucial diplomatic meeting. delicate trade negotiations, but he could not focus. Something was wrong. He felt it. It was then that his assistant discreetly entered and handed him a note. Elena Ramirez has been detained on charges of theft. She is at the Central Holding Facility. Julian immediately stood up, interrupting the meeting. "Your Excellency, we are not yet finished," one of the diplomats protested. "The meeting is concluded," Julian said, his voice cold as ice. He left without explanations. 20 minutes later, Julian entered the Central Holding Facility like a storm. Guards bowed. Directors hurried. He did not ask for permission. He demanded to see Elena immediately. When the interrogation room door opened, Elena lifted her eyes, red from crying. To see Julian there was like breathing after drowning. "She leaves now," Julian said, the undeniable authority in his voice. "Your Excellency, there is evidence." "I said now." The tone left no room for contestation. Julian demanded access to the security cameras. He personally reviewed every recording, and he found it. A woman entering the kiosk storage room, planting the box, manipulating the evidence. Serena Lockhart. But Serena never accepted the rejection. And now, seeing Julian interested in someone else, worse, a common person, she decided to destroy. When Julian confronted Serena with the proof, she did not deny it. She just smiled with disdain. "Do you think you can mingle with just anyone and there will be no consequences?" she said, venomously. "She is no one, Julian, no one." "She is worth more than you ever were," Julian replied, his voice low, dangerous. Serena lost her smile. The scandal erupted. Serena was formally accused. Her reputation crumbled, and Elena was publicly exonerated. But the humiliation had left its marks. When Elena finally returned home, she was broken. Not physically, but emotionally. The way she had been treated, accused, judged, all for having talked with someone who liked her. She didn't know if she could go back to the kiosk. She didn't know if she could face the stares, the comments, the suspicions. Julian appeared at her door 2 days later. Elena opened it, surprised. He was without his entourage, without security, just him. "May I come in?" he asked, respectfully. She hesitated, but opened the way. They sat in the small living room. The silence was long, but not uncomfortable. "I am so sorry," Julian said, finally, "for everything you went through because of me. It wasn't your fault. It was. I knew my presence would bring problems. But I was selfish. I needed you." Elena looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "I've never had anyone see me as a person," Julian continued. "I was always the title, the position, the responsibility. But you treated me as Julian. Just Julian." Tears burned in Elena's eyes. "I don't know what to do anymore," she confessed. "I lost my job. My name is tarnished. I don't know how I'm going to help my family." Julian took a deep breath. He had thought deeply about this moment, about what was right, what was fair, what was possible. "I want to make you a proposition," he said, "but I need you to listen until the end before you decide." Elena nodded, cautiously. "I am creating a cultural foundation, aromatherapy, olfactory memory, the preservation of traditional fragrances, something that unites science and culture. And I need someone who understands essences not just as a product, but as an art." He paused. "I want you to work with me, not as a sales associate, as a creator, a specialist, someone who can transform this talent you have into a real profession." Elena remained silent, processing. "I am not offering this out of pity," Julian continued. "I am offering it because you are the most qualified person I know. You have a rare gift, and you deserve for that gift to be valued." "And what will people say?" Elena asked, her voice low. That you were hired for your competence. Because it is true. And us? What does this mean for? Whatever this is between us? Julian hesitated. That was the most difficult question. It means we will have time to find out, he said honestly. No pressure, no scandal, just us, discovering if this is real or if it is just solace. Elena looked into his eyes and saw the same uncertainty, the same hope, the same fear she felt. I accept, she said, but with one condition. What is it? No special privileges. I work like any other employee. I prove my worth. I don't want anyone to say I am there for any other reason. Julian smiled. Agreed. 3 months later, Elena was in a modern laboratory, surrounded by vials, essential oils, and state-of-the-art equipment. She created fragrances that told stories, that awakened memories, that healed invisible wounds. And it worked. Her first creation, a line of therapeutic scents for anxiety, was a silent but profound success. Julian observed from a distance, proud, but also cautious. They saw each other frequently, but maintained boundaries. Formal lunches, professional meetings, careful conversations. Until one day, Elena finished a new fragrance. She called Julian to the lab. I want you to try this, she said, extending a simple vial. Julian opened it and inhaled. The scent transported him. It was the same fragrance from the first time, amber and tonka bean, but different, deeper, more complex, as if it had grown, matured, gained layers. It's the same one you sold me that day, Julian said, recognizing it. Not exactly, Elena replied. It's what that fragrance became after everything we've been through. It grew too. Julian looked at her, and for the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel completely. I fell in love with you that day, he confessed, when you told me that scent reminded you of places where we can finally breathe. Because you made me breathe again. Elena felt her heart quicken. Me too, she whispered. But I was afraid it was just circumstance, desperation, loneliness. And now, Julian asked, moving closer. Now I know it wasn't. He gently touched her face. Elena closed her eyes and felt his breath near. May I? Julian asked, his voice hoarse. Yes. The kiss was slow, deep, full of everything they hadn't said. And when they separated, both were smiling. It's still going to be complicated, Elena said, realistically. I know. People will talk. Let them talk. My family will freak out. Mine too. They laughed. A light, genuine, liberated laugh. 6 months later, Elena inaugurated the Foundation's first concept store. A space where people could create their own fragrances, explore memories, heal traumas through scent. And Julian was there, in the front row, not as a magnate, but as the man she loved. In her opening speech, Elena held the original fragrance bottle, now framed, a symbol of where it all began. This fragrance cost $40, she said, emotional. But it changed 2 lives forever. Because sometimes, what we need isn't the most expensive, the rarest, or the most exclusive. It's just something that reminds us we can still breathe, that we can still feel, that we are still human. The audience applauded. Julian applauded louder. And that night, when they were alone on the building's terrace, looking at the city lights, Elena asked, "Do you regret anything?" Julian pulled her close. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it was true. A simple artisanal fragrance had broken through the powerful magnate's facade, and a humble young woman had discovered that her talent could change destinies, including her own. The end.